Hello, and welcome back to Lauren's Legends. Today's story is wow. This is one of the only stories so far that I have researched that has actually really creeped me out. I'm a big fan of the show Supernatural, and if you are as well, you'll know when I mean they should have really called Sam and Dean in this. I hope that you enjoy. Please sit back, relax, and on this one, I am highly going to recommend turning a light on. Christopher Case was a lover of music, and he loved every genre, and he loved creating and coming up with new sounds that he had not heard yet. In 1989, he landed a huge job as director of recording in a company named Muzak. Muzak was a company very well known for elevator music, the soft tunes that you would hear in there, and they needed to completely rebrand. So they hired Christopher to ultimately overhaul everything. This company was located in Seattle, Washington, which is also where he lived. He did a great job for over 2 years doing everything that they needed to rebrand and was making a huge difference. On April 10th, he was sent to San Francisco for a business trip. A long day of traveling, he gets in, he's excited to be there, he checks into his hotel, he's laying down in bed, excited for the next day where he gets to go out on town and explore. On the 11th, after he had finished his work for that day, he decided to go out and get out on the town. As he's going around and exploring little shops, he bumps into a woman and they start talking. After having small talk back and forth, and he tells her what he does for a living, working and creating music for this huge company, she tells him that she herself is a music lover and has a very large collection of ancient Egyptian music at her house. Being enthralled by the prospect of this rare material, he wants to know more about it and he wants to keep talking. So he proceeds to ask her to accompany him to dinner. They proceed to the restaurant, they're sitting there, they're eating. The dinner is going quite well, and he is very excited to be hearing all the little details about this massive collection that she has. And then things turn. She proceeded to make a romantic advance towards him, and it wasn't that he wasn't interested. He found her very intriguing, but they lived so far away, Seattle, Washington, San Francisco, it would never work. So he politely turned her down. This suddenly enraged the seemingly normal woman. Seething through her teeth, she told him, "I am a witch. I have now cursed you, and you will be dead within a week." And then she proceeded to stand up and run out of the establishment. Christopher was not a believer in witchcraft or the supernatural, but something about this woman had deeply disturbed him. He tried to collect himself, but he made it out the restaurant and went back to his hotel room, and he could not let it go. So he decided to call his very best friend for the last 10 years, which her name is Sammy Souter, and he explained to her what happened. Over the next few days, he gets back home, he is unpacking everything, he's trying to get back into his normal way of life, but he could not let these paranoid thoughts go. He could not shake them, and they began to get more and more intense. By Sunday, April 14th, it had gotten so bad that he had to talk to someone about it. So he called Sammy and told her that he wasn't able to sleep. Every single time he would close his eyes trying to go to sleep, he would hear little whispers going on in his apartment, and he would get up out of bed and go and look for them and couldn't find any kind of source of it. Putting his head against the wall to see if it was the neighbor, nothing. Everything was quiet until he would lay back down in his bed, and then it would start again. Even when he wasn't home and he was with others, he could never shake the fact of feeling like he was being watched. And then the night before, when he was laying in bed, closing his eyes, hearing the whispers, opening them, he started to see shadows moving throughout his apartment. Sammy tried to calm him down, try to think rational. She asked him if he had ever experienced sleep paralysis. Maybe that was what was going on, but he was absolutely adamant that that was not what was going on. It was something outside of anything else that he had ever imagined. By Tuesday, April 16th, he felt as though he was descending completely into madness. He was now beginning to wake up with cuts and bruises all over his hands, and he believed that it was the witch torturing him while he was sleeping. It was getting so bad, and he was so sleep deprived that he actually had not gone to work in the last 2 days because he was so paranoid. Seeking out help, he went to his local Christian bookstore down the street from him. He bought several crosses, all of their kosher salts, and all of their holy water. Thinking that he had enough protection, he went back to try to catch some sleep. But yet again, as soon as he closed his eyes, the whispers came, and they grew, and then they were louder than they had ever been before. He ran out of his apartment and went and stayed at a motel that night. On Wednesday, April 17th, Sammy spoke to him again that morning, but Christopher sounded as if he was a different person, an entirely different person. He was calm and very defeated. He actually stated to her that he thought that this would be his last night on earth. Very concerned for her friend, Sammy asked him to go and speak to somebody, to get help, and go to talk to a priest. Christopher listened, and he went to the nearest priest that he could find, and the priest later said that he had asked him about how to combat dark supernatural forces and asked the priest to pray for his soul. On that Wednesday evening, Sammy had called and called and called again and could not get Christopher. She was extremely worried about him. The last time they had talked, he had told her that he believed it was his last night on earth. She wasn't aware if he went to a priest or not, so she decided to call the police and ask them to do a welfare check. That evening, the police arrived at the apartment. They went up and they checked the door, and the door was locked, and everything was quiet, and since they had no cause, they did not seek entry. Thursday, April 18th comes. Sammy is absolutely frantic. She still has not heard from her friend that she knows is going through an insane situation in his life. She has reached out to the police. They've done the welfare check. She's at the point of buying plane tickets. Mind you, she lived across the country, and it would have been very expensive, but she was looking into doing it. At 3:38 p.m., she decided to call the police one more time and ask them to do one more welfare check. This time, when the police arrived, they tried the door, and the door was unlocked. Upon opening it, they could hear ever so softly religious music playing in the background. The room was very dark, and as they entered, their eyes began to adjust. They could see that the room was in a state of a mess, but it did not look as though a struggle had occurred. Then they saw all these little pieces of paper all over the room. Upon inspecting them, they realized that they were all instructions and information on how to combat evil spirits. They then saw that the entire room had crosses all over it. Bookshelves, tables, everywhere there were crosses, and there were burnt candles everywhere as well. What makes it even creepier is that they see salt, the kosher salt, all over every single baseboard, piles of salt in the corners, and even on the window seals there was salt. And they were finding notes talking about how the salt was supposed to repel the devil and evil forces. Out of the corner of one of the officer's eyes, he sees a flicker of light. He turns that way and realizes that it's coming from the bathroom. The officer turned the corner to see Christopher in a kneeling position in his bathtub. He looked like he was praying. There was no water in the bathtub. He was completely clothed and even still had his glasses on. The officer called his name and he didn't respond, so the officer goes up to touch Chris, and he's cold. The weirdest thing of all this is that he was in a kneeling position, dead. This was a healthy 35-year-old male who did not drink, did not smoke, did not do drugs, and the medical examiner said that he had died of cardiac arrest. At 35, his heart had failed him, with no diagnosis that he had any problems with his heart prior. Sammy was obviously interviewed after this and after the find, and they asked her what she thought had happened to him. And she believes that he was so scared of whatever was hunting him that his heart stopped. I don't know what I think, but what do you think? Please let me know in the comment section down below. This one is one that's going to make me probably sleep with my TV on tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.